You turn around and there's a cup. It's like, where did that come from? And so for me,
your son.
I just hit David for those that,
They heard the thud.
Yeah, the thud.
You're listening to the Nacho Kids Podcast, where we discuss all things step family related. Real stories, real people, real help. Your hosts are the creators of the Nacho Kids Method and the Nacho Kids Academy Step Family Coaching Team, Lori and David Sims.
Hello, David.
Hello, honey.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Well.
So you ready for summer? Because it's almost over.
Well, I think we're getting ready to go into the dog days of summer.
Yeah, there is that. So we're about...
What does that mean?
I don't know, because we have dogs here every day.
Because you sweat like a dog?
I don't know. I'd have to Google it.
I do know that it has something to do with a lot more motorcycle wrecks.
The dog days of summer?
Mm-hmm.
That's not why they call it that, though.
No, I don't think so. Unless there's a bunch of dogs that run out and make people wreck.
I've had that.
I know.
It was a bad experience.
Yes. There's nothing scarier than knowing something is wrong and having to wait 20 minutes for a phone call to figure out what your gut's telling you.
Mm-hmm.
To find out that your husband and one of the stepkids has been in a motorcycle accident.
I didn't my friend call you and his phone died while he was talking to you or something.
Okay,
like
I'll tell y'all the Reader's Digest version. David and a friend and another friend were going to go ride motorcycles. And David was going to take one of the kids and the other kid's like, no, he got to go last time. It's my turn. Or something happened and we switched kids.
Yep.
And you left, and I don't know, maybe a couple hours later, I was starting to do clothes, and I just got this gut feeling like something was wrong. Like I felt sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, God, please don't let anything happen to Ethan because David will never forgive himself. Could not shake the feeling. Something was wrong, Started to do work stuff just to get my mind off of it and to kind of distract me. And then your friend called, and he said, David's had a motorcycle accident. I said, I know. Where is he? And I'm sure he was probably like, what?
Yeah.
And then he starts trying to tell me, and I'm not very familiar with this area. I'm still not after 10 years. It's just not my thing. And he's trying to tell me, and then he goes, well, my phone's dying. It's on such and such road.
And it went out?
It went out.
Yeah. And then we were back in the country roads. I don't even know if I could find where we were at.
I can. I drove it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I drove it almost like a photographic memory of trying to find the flashing lights in the middle of the country.
Yeah. Well, my dad trying to find us too or something, and he's flying down the road doing, 90 miles an hour and 45.
Well, we both were, and it was dark, which didn't help.
I'm laying in the middle of the road. I'm alive, but my wife is going to run over me because she's going to come flying around the curve doing 90 miles an hour.
No, it wasn't like that. Your dad and I were just in a hurry to get there, and we get there finally. Papa passed the road, so I had to call him and tell him he passed the road because I could see the lights and stuff. And we went down the road, and they were getting ready to life light you.
Yeah. And
then you were in the ambulance, and I think I asked you your social security number, and you knew it, and so they called off life flight.
Yeah, they were asking me all kind of questions.
Yeah, but I think that was the one thing that they're like, oh my gosh, if he can remember his social security number, maybe he can just ride to the ambulance.
Yeah, they were asking me who the president was, and
that reminded me of sitting in there in your room, and you're all drugged up and passed out. And I'm in that room and still a nervous wreck and not know what's going on and all this stuff. And we knew Ethan was okay. I know we're leaving out a lot of this story. And remember the door? I know you don't remember it.
I don't remember the door.
It was like one of those clanky doors that when it shut, it latched. So it wasn't just the sound of it shutting, it was the sound of it latching. The ones you push.
Like at the hospital?
Yeah, in the hospital. You were in the hospital. Sorry, I might have left that part out.
Yeah.
And so we're in the hospital, and I'm sitting there, and you're all passed out and on drugs. And that door just keeps shutting and opening and shutting and opening. And that was bad enough. Well, then it was a Saturday night, so the drunks started coming in. And there was this guy that I'm guessing he was Mexican or Spanish or something. I'm not sure of his ethnicity. But he would say, yo, man, I need to use the bathroom. And they say, who stabbed you? And he'd say, no habla inglés. And then about 5 minutes later, he'd be like, oh, man, I need to use the bathroom. And they'd say, tell us who stabbed you. He'd say, no habla inglés. And I just died laughing. I mean, that is what I heard for 5 hours. And then I thought they were going to keep you, but they ended up not keeping you. Thank God you were okay. Well, they transported you, though. They transported you to Charlotte.
Yeah, but that's when the room wasn't a room. Remember, they had like a drawn place on the floor. And my gurney was like in the hallway in this drawing.
Yeah, but then they did put you in a room.
Yeah, eventually they did.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, y'all. We get sidetracked. You know that.
Yep.
So be careful if you ride motorcycles. We had another incident with us. And then something else happened, and I said, you know what? Lori's not getting back on it. That was 3 times. I'm done.
As a matter of fact, we were at a friend's house that third incident. We didn't even ride it back home.
Nope, I didn't. I said, I'm not getting back on it.
That was the last time we rode it. We wouldn't even ride it back to the house. It was like, okay, we're done.
Yeah, because we would have died.
Yeah, honestly, we would have.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So if you have a motorcycle, be careful. Ride free.
Yeah.
Be safe. Watch for dogs.
Yeah.
And crazy drivers.
Actually, we didn't even say how I wrecked, but it was a dog.
Yeah.
And then after the motorcycle got by a little bit, you know how dogs are, and once the vehicle gets by, it kind of runs behind it. Well, when it ran behind it, I was behind it. And so I hit the dog, not sure the details because, I went unconscious. And when I hit the asphalt and guy behind me said I bounced really good.
And your son landed and did not hurt anything, did not even have grass on his back.
No, not a scratch.
He said that he remembers flying through the air thinking, man, this is cool. Mm-hmm. And then thinking, crap, there's daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was not a fun ride for me.
No.
That led up to being out of work for 5 months and a bunch of rehabilitation on my shoulder and all kind of stuff. So all that aside.
Yeah.
Have fun this summer because kids are going to be going back and forth and lots of craziness happens during the summer and additional kids end up coming over to the house and going on vacation with you and all these other crazy things that happen during the summer. Ready for school to start.
Yeah, we're taking another kid with us on vacation for the first time because my son is worried because the brothers will not be here for the first time and he doesn't want to hang out with 2 old people.
Who's going?
You are.
You said 2 old people. I didn't know who was going because it wasn't me. I figured you was taking somebody else.
Okay, let's get to paying attention. This is going to end up being a 20-minute long intro, and we don't need all that.
All right, well, fine. Who are we talking to today?
Tracy Poizner.
Oh, she's so essential.
You are so stupid. He says that because her website is
essentialstepmom.com.
And her Facebook group is The Spectacular Stepmom.
Yep.
So she's essentially spectacular.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. She's pretty awesome. We talk about the fact that she's been in natural healing for 20 years, dealing with behavioral problems with kids for 10, and no, they weren't her own. She helps people with kids with behavioral problems.
Yep.
And no, don't say I need to make an appointment.
Then you caught me because I was about to.
Mm-hmm. Her significant other experienced parental alienation.
Okay.
We see that a lot. I'd like to have her back later to discuss that in more detail.
Mm-hmm.
And we also discuss stepmom burnout or step-parent burnout, which is really important to discuss because it is a stressful role that we play.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get to talking to her.
All right. Well, before we do that, let's hear from our sponsor.
There is a way to save your sanity and your relationship, and it's called the Nacho Kids Academy. In the Nacho Kids Academy, you will learn the skills and knowledge to properly nacho, techniques to handle step-family challenges, ways to improve your communication, and much, much more. Visit NachoKidsAcademy.com and sign up today to join other step-parents who are seeing the life-changing benefits of nachoing. Again, that's NachoKidsAcademy.com.
Today, we want to welcome Tracy Poizner with the Essential Stepmom. Hi, Tracy.
Thank you. Hi, Lori. It's so good to be here with both of you. This is great.
It's so glad that you finally got on our podcast. So now Lori can leave me alone about it.
What?
Oh, I'm really, really happy that you guys are doing this.
She's like, we got to get Tracy on. We got to get Tracy on.
Well, I'm not just happy that you're having me on, but I'm happy that you're doing a podcast. I think it's fantastic. I think you guys are great, and I will totally be listening. That's for sure.
Tracy, I met you, about a year ago?
Yeah, something like that.
Through the whole stepmom thing. I don't even remember how we met.
I remember how, and there's a funny story because I've been running a Facebook group for the last, year and a half anyway. It's called The Essentials. It's called The Spectacular Stepmom. And at one point, I really love having guests on to my Facebook Live things that I do. And at one point, I reached out to you, hoping that you would agree to be on a Facebook Live with me. And when I went to send you a messenger, you know how it says like also a member of this group or that group, or we have friends in common or whatever. And I realized that you had been in my group for like 4 months, and I had no idea that you were there. I just thought, I can't believe that. So then I just hadn't put the pieces together that you were you. But then we had a couple of great phone conversations, and
then we did the YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
That was nerve-wracking.
Was it?
Yes, it was. Oh, I was so nervous.
She doesn't like video.
I know, I don't like video.
Well, you did great, I thought.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself and your blend.
Yeah, well, I started out as a bio mom. My daughter, whose birthday it is today, actually, I'm not even going to say how old she is because holy cow, she's an age where you stop telling how old you are. Anyway, it's her birthday today. And so I separated from her dad when she was about 11. And I was single for a number of years. And then I got together with the man who is my husband now. Well, it's a long and kind of funny story how we got together, actually, because he started out as a tenant in my house.
Free rent?
He was, no, not at all. He was, he's a musician, and I've been a musician also in my life. And we were working in the same orchestra. Me not, like I was just part-time by then because I had left that career and I was doing something else. I'm also involved in natural health. I have a private practice in homeopathic medicine. It's another whole long story. But anyway, no, he lived here for 5 years before we actually decided that we wanted to be together. So I knew his kids before we got together. So I've known his kids since they were 2, 4, and 7.
Wow.
And they are now 19, 21, and 24. So that's a long time. We've been together 12 years and married for 5.
So they were 14 and up when y'all got married?
That sounds about right. And so 2 of them had lived with us even before we got married. Mm-hmm. We've had all 3 of them living with us full time, but one at a time.
Wow.
So I joke with him that we're the serial parents of an only child.
Yeah.
We did that 4 times with my daughter and then with each of his 3. So I think that's a really unusual experience.
Yeah, but it probably was a blessing.
You can say that.
Let me ask you this. In the stepmom groups, we hear people say, well, the kids were fine with me until we got married.
Yeah.
And then things changed. Did you experience that?
No, I didn't.
Good.
No, I didn't. It was things changed when we got together because they had been coming here for visits to visit their dad before that. So I think I was really lucky. They liked me. They liked hanging around me, and I knew that we were okay together, so that when things got rocky, later on, it was I had some context for it. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't so that wasn't so hard for me as it might have been otherwise. I think it was easier to say that I had known them from before.
Right. Yeah. Instead of just a stranger coming in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had a relationship already. So that made it, I think, easier. And, I won't lie, like I hear on the groups all the time, and you certainly know that a lot of the potential conflict can be about blending your respective kids together. And my daughter had gone off to college when we got together. So we have been, us occasionally together under one roof, like for holidays and stuff. It will actually happen tonight that like to my very rarely the oldest boy comes to visit, but he's going to happen to be here tonight because they're all going away for Easter. And my daughter and I are going to my parents in Toronto. So we're all going to be here kind of under one roof. And the third boy is with my husband's extended family where they live. So they're all going to be together over there. So we're all going in different directions, but we will have 3 kids under one roof tonight. And it's totally doable for a few hours. I did not have to live the experience of blending everyone together. And my daughter was so happy to be an only child. She used to say all the time, thank you for not having more children. Thank you for not having more children.
I think about that with my son because, he was an only child and then we got married. And in the beginning, David's kids were here a lot more often. And then eventually, I think year 2, we went to 50-50 with his ex. Mm-hmm. And so my son was the only child every other week. Mm-hmm. He's probably going to be in counseling at some point because of that. But
there's a lot of reasons why he's going to be in counseling.
It's weird because I relate it to almost like if David's traveling. The first couple of days you miss them, and then you kind of get in your own groove.
Yeah.
And then they come back, and everything's kind of messed up.
Yeah. Totally. Well, we've actually been empty nesters this year because the youngest one was in university, and just today, she's moved back for the summer from university. So it's going to be, again, like just a shift of routine. I think it's, it just is what it is. It's just normal that, of course, you change your routines or whatever when there's nobody home. That's okay. It's good too. I'm looking forward to it.
Tracy, give us a little bit of the backstory about what got you into the essential stepmom thing. I'm going to say it's a thing because I want you to explain what it is. So what kind of got you into that, and what does essential stepmom do?
Like I said, I'd been in the natural healing space for quite a long time. I've been doing that for 20 years. And I love, helping people solve their problems. Typically people come to me for, well, not just physical things, but emotional things too. And in the last 5, maybe closer to 10 years, I've specialized in behavior problems for children, like alternative medicine, alternative treatments for people who are, looking for help for behavioral, developmental problems, learning issues, whatever it might be. And so I certainly have a real passion for helping kids. And I think when my husband's youngest child, his daughter, eventually came to live with us here, that's 2 and some years ago, after she had been here for a while, I kind of woke up one day and thought, I think we did it. Like we had so much, struggle and anxiety with parental alienation and with, kids not doing well and mental health issues and paperwork and legals and, like all of that was over. And it was like, she was here full time, enrolled in school. Everybody's doing good. The boy's in university. The older one lives on his own and has a job. And I just said, like, I think we did it. Like I felt like I was standing in the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, really. And I just felt moved. I said, I think that I've developed a kind of a skill set here that I could be sharing with people. Like it was not at all easy to deal with all that stuff. And because of my long background in natural health, I'm a real good listener. That's what I do all day. And I love helping people with their problems. And I thought, I think I have a lot to contribute to women who are not blessed with all the resources that I had that I used a lot,
right,
to help me through this. And so I started reading books. The first thing I did was read everything I could about the step parent situation. And then I decided to, I started looking at, at Facebook groups, and I was really kind of disappointed with what I found there, because at the time, most of them were not run by anybody. They were just kind of not self-help groups, but they were just like collections of people who would jump on and talk about their problem. And then everybody else would jump in and like sort of pick sides or slag the, the offending husband or bio mom or mother-in-law or kids or whatever. And they would have a great old time kind of beating up on somebody else's family. And I just thought, this isn't helpful. Like, this isn't helpful at all. There isn't somebody there kind of moderating and saying, well, like, okay, and now here's the sensible solution to your problem. Or now here's, like, let's hear from somebody who's been in this a really long time and come out the other end of that, can tell you what it looks like 5 years or 10 years down the road, or can tell you what they did that really helped.
Right.
Yeah.
To solve your problem. So I thought, I'm going to start a Facebook group of my own. And what I did was I hung out in all those other Facebook groups and I looked for people who were giving really good advice. And I reached out to them on Messenger and I said, I'm starting another group and I would really love it if you would be, part of that, because I think the women in my group would really benefit from, hearing your perspective. So that when I started, getting women, like, it's not a huge group. We've got, just under 600 women now there. But when I started out, I had, 15 or 20 ladies who were, I knew that I could count on them to give good advice. And I set out some really strong ground rules about how the members are allowed to talk to each other. And I said, if anybody ever writes, you knew what you were signing up for, you will be immediately ejected from the group without notice.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
That is my pet peeve.
Yes.
And I think that, I wrote a blog about this a while ago, but like, I can relate it to the extent that I used to be really judgy other people. Like, when I was in an unhappy marriage,
Mm-hmm.
I was really judgy about people who had gotten divorced or were getting separated or whatever. I just thought, hey, you don't get to do that. Like, because it wasn't in my universe that I was ever going to do that. And so, like, in my world, everybody sucks it up and stays miserable. Like, that's your only choice, right? And if you're doing something else, you're really challenging my need to stay here and do it that way. So I get it that lots of women are miserable and they're looking to, like, misery loves company, and they just want other people to be miserable with. And I don't want to hang out with those kind of people.
But it's kind of a fine line, because when people see other people that are experiencing the same thing as they are, they feel like they're not alone. So that's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
But then the next thing you know, they're feeding each other stress, or I don't know the word I'm looking for, like they're lighting each other's fires, know, kind of thing. And it just comes out as, oh, well, my husband did this, or, mine did this, or my stepkids did this. And then it's not beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other side of, like, the Facebook groups, that if you're trying to get help, it's hard to not pick up on other people's problems.
Yeah.
There for a while, I actually had to step back. I had to nacho the nacho group for a little bit, because I would find myself reading something before I left work, or, at a stoplight, and I'd come home and I'd be mad as sin because it brought back, like, PTSD or something from when the stepkids did something to me.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, well, why did you wait so long to start doing this? Well, I had to heal.
Yeah.
I had to heal for us to re-engage, and then I had to heal for me to be able to really help other people without me picking up
for sure
their problems, or, taking it on as my own.
Yeah. The other problem I see in some of these groups is that, and I don't stay in them near as much as you do, Lori. So, but what I do see often is that somebody will come into the group with a problem, but they're asking a bunch of other people with problems to help them with the problem. And it's, to me, I'm like,
that's right.
Boggles my mind. I'm like, if you have a problem, go to people who know the answers or can help you. Don't go to the people who have all the same problems you do and ask for advice, because not that people don't have good advice, but oftentimes the 2 or 3 really good threads of advice are sewn in with 150 crazy comments. And so it's like, oh my gosh.
That's it. Yeah, I totally agree with you, David. And that's, sometimes I say that it's as if, a group like that, it's like a bunch of people who are all like swimming around in the same murky water.
Mm-hmm.
And you need somebody standing on the shore to like put down a ladder and let you climb out. And if there's nobody standing on the shore, like throwing you a lifeline and pulling you out, then you're all just in there swimming around together. So at first it feels good to know that you're not alone in your murky water, but at some point, like you need help from somebody who has been there and got out of it, like in a positive way, who resolved that problem X, whatever it was. And it's not so helpful to just hear from a lot of other people who are proposing what they're going to do and they're going to fail, because you guys, and we all know that 70% of step families don't make it.
Yeah.
So you don't want the advice from the 70% of people who are on their way over the, into the ditch.
Mm-hmm.
You actually don't want their advice.
Right.
And you don't know as a consumer, like as you're swimming around in the dark, you don't know whose advice is good or not good. And so I think that's why groups like yours and mine that are really intensively moderated by people like yourselves and people like me who have been through a great number of different problematic scenarios. And, we have advice to offer that led us in the right direction. And we can say that now because we're there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And some people, they're just not there. They don't really want help. They just want other people to, say, yeah, you're right. You should be mad.
You know what? I see that in my natural health practice too, that even people who, come to see me ostensibly to, recover from whatever their problem is, especially people who bring their difficult kids, that, I can tell that there's something about the dynamic that is serving them in some way that none of us understand, but that's a very common kind of scenario, and that they're not really ready to give up whatever it is that they're getting, if it's attention or an opportunity to purge a lot of old feelings because they're in a similar situation now to something else that happened earlier in their lives. They're not ready to change it. And so I feel like you do. I don't have a lot of time for that. I'm interested in working with people who are in a very confusing and problematic situation, which is any kind of blended family.
Right.
And they really want to know what we know. Like,
Mm-hmm.
tell me how to do this better. What don't I get about this? And step parenting, this kind of step parenting, where the kids have other living parents
Mm-hmm.
that they see on a regular basis. This is a brand new thing in society. This has never existed before. And half of all kids are living with one step parent. Like,
Yeah.
half of all kids by the time they're 18 are experiencing some kind of blended family situation. And we have no preparation for this.
No, you don't.
It's never existed before in all of humanity,
Mm-hmm.
this kind of social dynamic. So, like, no wonder nobody knows how to do it.
Funny, this was been a couple years ago, when I was looking up percentage of step families or blended families, the success rate and things like that. There's no accurate number because it's not censored, or it's not, when you go to the doctor, it says married, divorced, single, widowed.
Yeah.
It doesn't say step family or blended family.
Right.
So there's no real way that they're keeping up with this. And, it was rare when I was growing up, which I'm old, but not that old. It was rare to have a kid that didn't have both their parents in their home.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember with my son thinking I felt bad for him because I didn't want him to be like the only kid that his parents weren't together. You know what? There's very few kids that their parents are still together.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it's a completely changing dynamic.
Yeah. But it's changed so fast. And also, even when we talk about step parenting, how that looks is completely different. Like in your house, you had some kids all the time, and then your kid 50-50, and then all the kids 50-50. And then, lots of people have every other weekend,
Mm-hmm.
or they have them not at all. And then suddenly they have them all the time because something has happened at the other end, and that, mom gets sick, or, takes off or goes to jail or who knows what, all kinds of things happen. But, I hear it all the time. And, these people have been married for 3 or 5 or 10 years. And suddenly, hello, like you're a full-time parent of kids who obviously have a huge burden of, emotional upset around the circumstances of leaving where they are and coming to live with a parent who they maybe don't even know very well, and a stepmom that they don't know at all.
Yeah.
It's huge, and it's really something brand new for us. So I feel like we're writing the rules now that people are going to follow. Not writing them, but we're helping people to understand that there are rules that lead you in the right direction. And I think that's a new concept.
Right. Now, we talked a little bit before we actually started recording, and you brought up a point, which is probably a good area to start talking about it, where you said that you are starting to see and deal with step-parent burnout. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, I had it.
No, you just have wife burnout.
I have David burnout.
That's easy to happen.
I talk to the women in my group all the time. I invite people to, make appointments to talk with me on the phone. This was a topic that kept coming up. People were talking about, step-parent burnout. And I thought, wow, so I started asking questions about that in the group, like who here feels like you identify with that? And holy cow, there was like an avalanche. And I think it's a good term because it covers a lot of different feelings. It puts a name on something that, one of the women in my group said, oh my God, like there's a name for that. Like I didn't even know, but it makes total sense. Like this is what I'm feeling. And I think that it's important to distinguish between, burning out of the step parenting issues and just regular life stuff. There are some women who are, step parents of 3 or 4 kids, and then they have a baby and a toddler at home and they're working full time or whatever. Like there's life that is crazy, and you could, you could become exhausted or burnt out or impatient because, there's a lot of difficulty in your life just around stuff. I think it's different when we're talking about burning out from long years of custody issues that don't get resolved, of, dealing with kids who are heavily conditioned by, let's say, their bio mom to be disruptive or disrespectful, or to, not, that it doesn't go smoothly at your house when they come to visit. There, you can burn out from having, a very high conflict ex-wife with the mother of the kids to deal with, where there's a great deal of conflict that doesn't go away. And, I probably half the people in my group would say that they suffer from some kind of burnout. So I felt like it was really important to address the topic and let women know that it's a thing, like it's not just you being weak or not up to the task, or it's a thing. It's kind of like when we gave a name to PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, like millions of people could breathe a sigh of relief. Like, okay, this is a thing. It's not just me being weak and not being able to cope. Like lots of people have this problem, and let's talk about it and figure out how it happened, and then work on how to come back from that, because of course there's a way to heal that.
When David and I first got married, of course, it was just me and my son, and we moved in with David and his 4 kids. And so I went from a calm environment to the zoo. And that was hard enough in itself to adjust. But as a woman, you feel like that you need to do the dishes, you need to cook, you need to clean, you need to make the appointments, you need to fit that motherly role. Even as a stepmom, you come in and you're like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then the next thing you know, you're mad because you feel like you're doing everything and that the bio parent's not doing anything. And
Yeah.
David would help with things if I asked, but a lot of times we have a bad habit of not asking for help. We would rather just get mad and stay mad about it. And then when he goes, "What's wrong?" Well, you know what's wrong, or you should know what's wrong.
Yeah.
So it was overwhelming to me having to even fix supper for one person to all of a sudden, how many? 7? I can't ever remember how many
Yeah,
people
7.
we got. 7 people.
Mhm.
And I'm not kidding. It was like an assembly line of slapping the food on the plates, you know. And oh my God, dishes were never done. As soon as you would fill up the dishwasher.
They still aren't done. There's 3 people here now.
Oh, David, we're not talking about that right now. So, you know, as soon as you would do the dishes from dinner or whatever, you'd empty the sink, everything's done. You're like, whew, you turn around and there's a cup. It's like, where did that come from? And so for me.
Your son.
I just hit David for those that, you know.
That heard the thud.
Yeah, the thud.
But it's just, it was very overwhelming for me, you know. And then you think about the laundry and just even the noise. I would just have to go outside. And I've learned over the years that my personality type, I don't do well with a lot of noise. So that made me even burn out quicker.
I was going to say that personality type is something that I talk about. Well, I'm developing this program called Healing Step Parent Burnout. That's what I'm doing at the moment. And one of the things that I talk about right away, actually, in the Get Started guide for that program is personality types. Because
is it the Myers-Briggs?
You can do Myers-Briggs, and there's another nice personality typing called Enneagram.
Enneagram?
Enneagram. Enneagram. That has 7 types, and both of those, Myers-Briggs and Enneagram, you can do a free test online, and it's fun. I just did mine, and I found it super interesting. But obviously, there are some personality types who are much more likely to burn out than others. And I'm sure that you can see, if you think about the kind of posts that you read, that some of these women are not going to burn out. They are going to leave their relationship. Right?
Yeah.
Or they're going to, the husband is going to leave because they're dug in and they know what they want.
Mm-hmm.
The personality types who are going to burn out are people who are doers and givers and nurturers, caregivers, right?
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot in the Nacho Kids Academy too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's one of the things where we ask the participants, say, if it's David and I, what's my personality type, then find out what his is. And then find out the best way to communicate between the two,
right?
How each other takes certain things,
right?
Because it's very important.
Exactly. There's all kinds of things like the 5 love languages. That's an awesome thing to do. There's a book called the 5 languages of love or something, and different people interpret their the way that you receive love is between receiving things or having people do things for you or having people say nice thing, what you need to hear. Or spending time is the most important thing. So I forget what the other one is, but anyway, somebody will jump right on and know. but it's important to, for us to know with our kids and our partners that, like, for this person, nothing is more important than hearing you say good job or thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And for somebody else, they want you to just bring me a cup of coffee. Like, that would mean everything. If you would just, show up with come over with bring my favorite sandwich on a plate or whatever, that's going to be like, then I know that you love me.
Right.
Or whatever. And we all have different ways of doing that. And sometimes, there's a lot of confusion and misunderstanding. I think that's probably why that book is so popular, because it really helps people to communicate with each other in a really easy way, that it doesn't take much to just think, I have to remember to do that. I have to remember to actually say what's on my mind.
Right.
And it doesn't help my partner that I think it. or that I hug him. He doesn't want, a hug and a kiss. He wants me to say, thank you, honey. Yeah, it's important.
It is. It's very important.
I think by default, though, people tend to believe that everybody else is similar to them.
Right.
And so when I'm dealing with my spouse, I'm thinking, well, she sees the world the same way I do. She should react the same way I do. She should care about the same things I do in the same manner.
Because it's hard for you to view something differently than how you see it.
It is, but that's part of what we're talking about here is that you have to understand that we all are very different, and even when you look at the personality and the disc analysis, and I could have the exact same disc profile as the next guy, but I still see things differently because I have different environmental factors and way I grew up and things that I saw and experienced, and
nature and nurture.
All that stuff, is thrown into a big pot and stirred up, and that becomes who I am. And so it is difficult for people to understand, how do I dig through all this and peel back the layers of the onion to find out who is it that I actually married, and how should I communicate with them and love them and nurture them.
I want to go back for a second. David, do you think stepdads have burnout?
Heck yeah, put up with you women.
No.
Do we have...
David says all women are crazy. You will probably hear that multiple times throughout our podcast series.
I think I should trademark that. Do I think stepdads get burnout? I think that stepdads get burnout when their spouse is not happy and the kids aren't happy, and then they're stuck in the middle. And so they have the pressure from both sides, and it's not a pressure to resolve something that's beneficial for everybody. It's a pressure to the wife wants it resolved one way, the kids want it resolved a completely different way. And then if there's any other outside influences like the bio mom, the grandparents, the aunt and uncle that live next door, whatever else, all these other factors are in there wanting something to happen. They're wanting dad to do something about this issue, but they're all pulling in different directions. And so, yes, that is stressful.
Would that be burnout or punching bag?
I think that the stepdad experience is so different to the stepmom experience.
I agree.
Because mothers and fathers have different sort of archetypal roles. And it doesn't mean that I'm not talking about, women aren't allowed to do this, or dad shouldn't be doing the dishes or something. I don't mean anything like that, but I mean, men in general need to fulfill a kind of provider, protector kind of role, whereas the women tend to be a nurturing, caregiving kind of role in general. And we all know, because I've been a single parent too, like anybody who's a single parent is doing all of that, and we all do all of that. There's a kind of divide where I think that women burn out from too much nurturing, that they don't need, that's not giving back to them, so that they're not getting renewed by the nurturing that they're doing. You can do anything. You can have 10 kids and nurture them, and if you're getting back what you need from that, you never burn out of it. You might be tired, but it's not burning out. And I think men get burned out when their provider and protector function is not giving back to them. So for instance, when a man is supporting two families, in one, maybe he's the dad of his own kids, and he's also the stepdad of his wife's kids, and he's providing in two families and feeling that he's not doing enough for either one of them. I think that can make him burn out and try harder and harder to be a good provider and feeling always, inadequate.
Right. I don't think men are as, I don't want to say needy as women, but maybe as emotional as women, or as emotionally invested in things, or take things so personally. Maybe that's the best way to put it. They don't take things as personal, I think.
Yeah. It's just also because of the way kids relate to in general, again, to a woman or a man, it's less likely that if he's a stepdad, then he's living with the mother of those kids.
Mhm.
And they are unlikely to disrespect him openly.
Right.
Right?
Mhm.
Like it doesn't, I'm sure that it happens in lots of families. And I don't want people to listen and say, you haven't been to my house, like come hear how it happens here. But somehow the moms are more engaged in the behavior of their own kids,
Mhm.
and have more feelers out for that. And I think that very often dads are coming from a situation where either they grew up in a house where the mom took care of a lot of that stuff, or their previous wife took care of a lot of that stuff, and they're not used to like snapping to attention when their kids are behaving in a certain way.
Oh yeah.
So, I think that I know that the dynamic is so different. There's a great book, and you guys have probably read this one a long time ago, called Step Families by Dr. James Bray. And he did a 10-year analysis of step families, which were all stepdad families. So he followed 100 stepdad families for 10 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And it's a great book. And, he talks about different styles of step families, and how, people's expectations really color the experience that they have of step parenting. But anyway, just because all of those families are stepdad families, it's easy to see when you read it how it's a very different kind of dynamic. And not to say that the stepdads don't suffer, because everybody wants to be liked, and everybody wants to be respected by kids who are in their house or whatever, but obviously it goes in a very different way.
Well, too, age is a huge factor
Yeah.
in the blend. And when David and I got married, Jackson was 4, and his kids were 9, 9, 9, and 10. So the relationship between Jackson and David is completely different than the relationship that I have with his kids.
Yeah, of course.
Because I'm cool.
I am awesome. Hello.
Now you are.
Yeah. Well, Jackson grew up with David telling him how awesome he was all the time. And, he didn't know any better. And David's kids, I had to prove to them how awesome I was, so it took time. And, I wonder, well, I don't really wonder, because I see it, and I'm sure you see it in groups too. People will go, well, I just don't understand this whole Nacho thing, the whole Nacho Kids method. And then they say that their stepkid is 1. Well, no wonder you don't understand it, because, hello, you have not reached the point that these kids are, planning on burning you at the stake.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's just so many different dynamics. It's hard. It's really hard. And I love that you and I can work together to try to help step families, or especially stepmoms, because it's like David says, no matter how we get to our end point, it's the fact that we get there.
Yeah.
And your goal and my goal is to not let these people become 72%.
Exactly.
Yeah. And let me ask you this, on the stepmom burnout, one thing that I would tell people is to ask for help when they need it, and to nacho certain things. Take some of that load off of you to where you're not so stressed out. And then also to tell your significant other what you need for you to fill your cup back up. We always hear you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
So what other suggestions do you have for stepmoms that are getting burned out? Or
Well, I think
Xanax, Valium.
Recognize that there are stages of burnout. The different words that women use to describe how they're feeling when I ask them about burnout, the ones who say things like, I'm tired, or I'm frustrated, or I feel like, I feel unheard, I feel unappreciated. Those are kind of that's the beginning of the burnout journey. And by the time you get to where people are saying, I feel defeated, I feel numb, I feel hopeless. I feel empty, like that's a stage 3 situation. And all the rest of it is in the middle, I feel unimportant. I feel, disrespected. I feel exhausted, I mean, there are many, many words and I don't have them all in front of me, but what I'm trying to say is that the different stages have different action steps for, coming back to yourself. And I think that in the first stage, it's important to identify that there is a thing called step parent burnout, and that, now it's important for you to do things to prevent yourself from going more down that road. And I think for a lot of women, just identifying the problem and knowing that it's not about them, that this is it's normal to feel frustrated and, and unheard and whatever, like those are normal parts of being in a blended family situation. And it's, it's good to have tools to make it go better and not go down that road. I think that when you're already in a very depleted state, that the first thing you have to do is try to get back in connection with yourself. And there are practices that you can do to sort of ground yourself, energetically speaking. Grounding things are, now we're coming into a time of year where it's possible to walk in bare feet outside. Walking in the water is fantastic for anybody who's lucky enough to, be near a beach or a river or somewhere where they can, put their feet in the water is great.
I knew I should live at the beach.
Yeah. Taking a bath with Epsom salts.
We got some mud puddles.
What?
So we got some mud puddles in the yard.
Mud puddles are good.
Used to play in them as a kid.
Well, one thing, and I don't know if you've seen this a lot, but we've had some experience with it, of stepmoms that are suicidal.
Oh, God.
And if you can catch people when they're at stepmom burnout stage 1 or 2, then that is tremendous, because you don't want them to get to 3.
Exactly. And I mean, the other thing about 3 is that there's, like we kind of coast along through 1 and 2 thinking like something's going to change, or, I don't, or, like, I think the only way that you get all the way to 3 is when you have a sense that the problem is you in some way, and that you don't have the confidence to get help because it feels embarrassing. You just think that it's all about you, like you're inadequate in some way.
And then you go through the, we've discussed this in the Nacho Kids Academy too, the ANTS, automatic negative thinking.
Okay.
Dr. Daniel Amen, I want to say amen when I hear his name. He wrote about ants and how you have so many thoughts a day, and of those, so many are negative, and it's an unconscious thought process.
Yeah.
And so you have to be aware of your thoughts. You have to make yourself stop them. Even if you have to scream stop at the top of your lungs, it's not realistic. And you have to be able to identify those things. And if you can't, then you need to get help, because, even if it's just starting each day off with writing 5 positive things.
Exactly. That's a big thing for me. For me, it's a gratitude journal of, 5 things a day that you feel grateful for. And that's like, it's so easy and it works so incredibly well. And one of my coaching clients said, in one of our follow-up sessions, she said, I have to tell you that I really thought it was kind of hokey, like the gratitude journal. I was super skeptical. And she said, like, wow, it really worked.
It's not. You have to feed your brain or your mind with positive thoughts. And
yeah, you do.
You need to be grateful every single day, and you can find something to be grateful for. And you also positive affirmations.
Yeah.
In November, we did a, with Thanksgiving, what are you thankful for thing in the Academy. And it was funny because like day 4 or 5, it's like list 5 things that you're thankful for. And they're like, again? I'm like, really? You're complaining about having to write things you're thankful for. I don't care if you write about, I'm thankful that I can see.
Indoor plumbing was a big one for me.
It really is imperative to feed your mind with positive thinking and people that support you. And we all have that one friend that you can talk to and be down in the dumps, and then they have you laughing hysterically over something. We all have to be able to find that person. It's so important, especially with the stepmom role, because it's easy to get drugged down. You've got the kids that hate you. You've got, all this stuff going on, and you feel like a punching bag. And then the next thing you know, you're punching on yourself.
Yeah.
Of, oh, I could have done this, or I should have done that. And so it's really important, like you said, to identify the different stages of the stepmom burnout and figure out what you can do at each stage to not go any further with it.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's about time to start wrapping up. So we are going to have our, what do you call them, David?
The lightning round.
The lightning round.
Like
During
that?
this round, we are going to ask you 4 questions. And you just tell us your answers. And before we get into that, I want to tell you that it has been a pleasure speaking with you as always.
Thank you. For me too. This is great. Thank you.
And happy birthday to your daughter, that we're not saying
Thank
how old
you.
she is again. And of course, we would love to have you on again because you offer so much knowledge and advice. And
Oh, thanks, Lori. Well, I just really like talking to you guys, so we might as well tape it.
so I'm going to let David go forward with this.
You are?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So this is number 1.
Yeah.
What's been the hardest part of blending for you?
Well, I guess I would say, parental alienation was a really big deal in our house. And it played out a little bit differently with each of his kids. But that's been very hard. And, it's not, how can I say this? Like, they're not my kids, right? So it's my husband who's really the victim of that and who's suffering, but the kids were suffering too. And, I love my husband and I love his kids. And it was not easy for me to see that happening and to feel really, you feel helpless for sure when that's happening. It's a very powerful force. And when you're in the middle of it, it feels like you're not ever going to get out of it. But, I have to just say that, we came out the other end and we have a very happy resolution in this household. But I reached out to women in some various groups, in mine and others, asking for people who had been children who were alienated from one parent or another as they were children. And almost every single one of them could say that they now, as adults, have a good relationship with the parent who they didn't see when they were a child, and that they have a very strained relationship with the parent who did that to them.
Exactly. That's the same thing that we've seen.
So for anybody who's listening, like, it feels awful and hopeless when you're in it, but you have long life ahead of you. And, the odds are very, very strongly that at some point, the kids are going to grow up and reach out to the parent who was alienated and find out that the story that they heard from their mom or their dad, because it happens in both directions, the story that they heard was not an accurate one. And
the kids, they grow up and they see things on their own. You don't have to tell them what a crappy parent the other one is, because they will see it. It may take 10, 20, 30 years. You might be half dead by the time they realize it, but they will see it and they will understand it. I think, I know that David's kids have a different respect, I think, for our marriage because they know the struggles we went through. And actually, Branson, he had did a Facebook Live with us a couple of times, and we're going to have him on the podcast when he comes home.
Nice.
Really important, I think, for people to see how the kids do turn out. Yeah. Especially as much crap, for lack of a better word, that Nacho Kids gets of how we're torturing the kids and how horrible it is for these kids. And they'll tell you, Branson will flat out tell you that if it wasn't for Nacho, we wouldn't have a relationship because he was the leader for the burn Lori at the stake.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was most vocal for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. You know how I get off track.
All right. So let's bring up number 2. Question number 2. What's been the best advice that you've ever received about blending?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I wish I could think it through more clearly, but I think that it would have to do with adapting other life advice to that, to this situation. And I think putting on your own oxygen mask before helping the passenger beside you, like, you hear it on the planes, right? When they give you the little pre-flight announcement and say, if anything happens and the oxygen mask drop, you have to put on your own. And of course they tell you that because we have a reflex that we have to help, others first. Many of us have that reflex, certainly to help your kids first and to do everything for them. And the message of that is that you can't help anybody if you pass out.
Yeah.
And you can't help anybody if you leave the relationship. You're not helping anybody anymore.
No, because you're just going to go back into another relationship later with the same issues.
Yeah, and that's what we tell people all the time. If you leave this relationship, you haven't fixed anything, you're going to encounter the same problems as you did before. Why not make this one work? Yeah. You've already vested time. And
yeah, well, they don't realize that the problem is not what they think it is. They think the problem is with the other person or with the stepkids or with the exes. A lot of times the problem is looking at them in the mirror.
Yeah.
Now be nice.
I'm being nice.
I'm sensitive to those things.
And it's not to say that, and I'm not saying that, hey, it's the wife's fault or whatever. What I'm saying is it is equally the husband and wife's fault, but they neither know that.
Yeah.
Because the husband's looking at the wife going, she's a nutcase and I don't understand what her problem is. And the wife's looking at the husband going,
he doesn't get off that game and take care of his kids. I
right.
wouldn't have to.
He won't parent and he doesn't blah, blah, blah. Well, they both are the problem, but neither one will look, in the mirror and say, okay, I understand that I'm the problem. What can I do to fix my part? And then the other spouse can do the same thing. And they look in the mirror and they say, okay, I understand I'm also a problem. And what can I do? Like, for example, I didn't know until, I'm looking back on it after we've learned a lot of things that we've learned and of course, putting together the Nacho Kids Academy and all that good stuff. But I've learned along the way that my expectations of Lori were so out of whack in the beginning. So going into the relationship, I expected her and our relationship to look like a nuclear family relationship. Yeah. And I would get upset because the kids didn't want to, do things together, or we all as a family didn't do things together sometimes. And I tried to force that to happen because that's what I thought should happen. And so I was creating a bunch of pressure and a bunch of misguided steps. And then
Stress,
I was
disappointment.
Yeah. I mean, all these things were going out of whack because my expectations were out of whack. And then that puts more on Lori to step up and do this parenting role that she shouldn't even be doing. And then when it blows up in her face, she's mad because it blew up in her face. And then I'm mad because she didn't do it. Yeah. I mean, it's just a mess. So there's no way I would look at her and go, well, it was all your fault. Yeah. Even though back then I probably thought she was 90% of it, and that's not the case.
I hate hearing this. and nobody likes to feel like that. It's them.
Yeah, of course.
And I remember when the Nacho Kids epiphany happened to me.
For you.
For me. I realized it was me. And I still don't like it. It hurts my little heart to say it. But once I removed myself from that vicious cycle of craziness, things got better instantly, And it's like, people will say, well, my stepkids are coming this weekend and I'm already dreading it. Okay. And that's Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay. You have control over your thoughts. Stop thinking that way. Yeah. Don't anticipate it.
You're spending 3 days preparing to make things bad.
Right. And so a lot of times it is us. And believe me, I don't like admitting that at all. But unfortunately, in that case, I mean, the kids had issues. David had issues, whatever. But I was the main part that was causing the problems.
Yes, but you also understood that you can only fix you.
Right.
And that relieves the pressure so that other people can look at things and go, oh, guess what? She's not the problem anymore, but we're still having issues. So let me go look in the mirror myself.
Can't blame Lori.
And and that's kind of part of what Nacho Kids does is when you step back and you allow the bio parent to step up you allow the focus to change on what's happening. And so the negative things that are happening can no longer be focused on you because you step back. And so they become more evident to where they need to be. And then the actual problem can be addressed and not the symptoms.
Yep. All right, next question.
Okay. We're going down a path. All right.
Buddy up.
Okay, so if you could travel back in time knowing what you know now, what would you tell your past self other than, don't do it?
No, she wouldn't tell herself that. I wouldn't even tell myself that.
I'd tell you that.
I guess I would say that you want to be able to project yourself into the future somehow and like talk to your old self and say, you see, it all worked out. Like, you didn't need to fret so much. And I think that whatever we're going through, it feels like your whole, like you're in the middle of the whole thing, and that's all that there is. And the more we can step outside of that and say, okay, look, 10 years from now, I'm going to be X years old, and the kids are going to be, this year at whatever age, and try to visualize that and say, like, whatever you're suffering now, I mean, our situation changed in such dramatic ways, that we could never have guessed. And I mean, I certainly wish that we had all the kids here sooner and for longer, for their sake. But you know what? It's their journey. And it's not my place to say what's better or worse for them, because I don't know what they're going to do with all of that life experience that they had, and all the hurts that they had, and the things that they learned, and what they saw about both of their parents, and, their experience of, their social circle or whatever. Like, that's the stuff with which they're going to go on in their lives and do something with it. And it's not for me to say that that was an objectively wrong experience for them to have. It feels wrong to me from my perspective, but I don't get to know what they're going to do with all of that. And that, those experiences might propel them into an amazing, career or possibility of helping other people, or who knows what, So I think you just have to know that things are going to change without any question. They're going to change dramatically from wherever they are now. And you want to keep, like you said, thinking positive thoughts as much as you can to point your toes in the direction of going where you want to go, and not just sitting on a hamster wheel of negative ideas that run around in your head all day.
Yeah. So things will work out, and look at the bigger picture. One of the other things that we talk about in the academy is, if it's not going to matter in 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, let it go. God forbid something tragic happens and you spent your whole time fussing at the stepkid because they broke your favorite spoon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to really put the emotional weight that it really should be there.
Yeah.
Assign it to it.
Yeah. Put things in a proper perspective.
Yeah. All right. Last question, David.
Last question. What's the one thing that you would tell others that are facing problems in blended families?
I would say that to look around, and all of us have similar problems. I think, Lori, you and I must have had the same situation of not really knowing someone else who's in your situation. Even those of us who may know other step parents, the life situation is so different that we can't see any similarities, and we don't really think about, talking to them or reaching out. But there are tens of thousands of women on social media who are sharing their experiences, and you need to at least see that you're not alone. Your experiences are completely very common and probably even normal, and that
normal.
Yeah. And that it's not serving you or anyone else to not get help. That I think your step family is actually counting on you to ask for help.
And don't
job
wait.
that you can do for them, it's to get the help that you need to learn the missing pieces. We're not, like I said before, we're not prepared by nature for this role. We have to learn from each other, and you have to surround yourself with good models of how this is done. You need to, find some stepmoms who can give you good advice about how it's done, because yes, there's a way. And I'm not like no two families are alike, but that doesn't mean that there aren't some very clear, rules to follow that are going to lead you much more in the direction of the successful 30%. And, you owe it to yourself and to the rest of your family to look for help and fill in the pieces of what you don't know how to do. And it's totally not your fault, because you don't pop out of the womb knowing how to do this. It's a brand new kind of thing that we're trying to do here, and everybody's learning as we go. But there are some women who are 5 and 10 and 20 years ahead of you on this journey who have a lot of really good advice.
Yeah. And, one thing that we notice is people wait till the last minute to get help.
Yeah.
And we were one of those people. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We were.
I can't really say that because we did prepare. We didn't go in this blind and, whatever, but it was divorce was the only option we saw. And then thank God for Nacho Kids. But we see a lot of people that they don't want to look for help until they're ready to leave. One thing that David and I decided was leaving wasn't an option. Once we decided this whole Nacho Kids thing, we were going to do it, that divorce was not on the table. Because if you have one foot out the door, or if your mind goes to, well, we'll just get divorced, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
You can't think that way. You have to be dedicated. And
you got to burn the ships.
Yeah. Yeah. Tracy, how can people find you? What have you got going on for us today?
Well, they can find me at my website, essentialstepmom.com. They can find me on Facebook in a Facebook group called The Spectacular Stepmom, where we'd be very happy to have anybody who cares to join there. If probably by the time you go looking at my website, you'll see information about my program called Healing Step-Parent Burnout. And you'll be able to download the Get Started guide, because I'm going to make that available to your listeners and people who want to have a better idea of what step-parent burnout is, and what are some easy steps that people can take to start reversing that, preventing themselves from going, farther down that road.
Well, I'm so glad that you're doing that.
Thank you.
I think it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a really good.
And I'm glad for the Nacho Kids Academy, which would be an excellent resource for anybody who's feeling burnt out. Truly, I think that that's a great deal of the work that you guys do. And I just want to say too that, because we talked about this the other day, but I think that there are so many women at this point, it's such a catchy phrase, saying Nacho Kids or the Nacho Method or whatever. And I think I love it, and I think it's fantastic. But I think that it's so easy to use it the wrong way, with the wrong energy. Because I've heard your story, I know that term was born out of you poking fun at yourself, and you're not poking fun at your stepkids. And I think that's where a lot of people, that they recoil from that term because they interpret it wrongly as a kind of a slag at the kids. And it's not that at all. It's you poking fun at yourself for not being able to realize that you were overstepping in so many ways. And, it belongs to the stepmom, the Nacho. It's not something that belongs to the kid,
right?
So it's not a kind of excuse to dislike your kids or to stop interacting with them or to be mean with them or to not have to do stuff for them anymore, whatever. It's a reset of your own mindset about what your involvement is actually supposed to be.
Yeah. And what works for you? There's certain situations where, like, I didn't cook for the stepkids because they complained about my cooking. And some parents can't do that, or some step parents can't do that because the dad's working or he's out of town. You can't not feed the kids. I mean, there's a lot of common sense to this. But the key is to remove those stressful triggers. Figure out a way to work through them, to avoid them, or to cope with them differently. And no, it's not a bash against the kids or anything like that. I had a habit of, before I would say anything, I'd just do the Macho Man song, and I'd sing their Nacho Kids to myself. And it would just make me laugh. I mean, you've got to laugh. You've got to lighten up. And you can't get through this just being
Grim.
Yeah, that's the right word. That's definitely the word I was looking for. You know, you've got to realize that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it is not an oncoming train. Well, Tracy, as always, we love you.
Thank you. I love you guys too. This is great.
And I'm sure we will talk to you soon. I made a note. I would like to have you back on later to talk about parental alienation.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be glad to do that.
We'll add that to the list of things to discuss.
All right.
Great.
And we look forward to checking out the burnout stuff that you've got planned for us.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's going really well. So I'm excited to get that up and running.
My parents act like aliens. Does that count?
Your dad loves aliens. That does
He
not count.
does. I swear. If one come and landed in our yard, he'd be like, running out the door, take me. I'm like, they ain't going to take you. You're going to shoot you with a laser. Anyway, all right. It's been great. And I appreciate you coming on the podcast. And we will
Thanks very
certainly
much.
talk to you soon.
Okay, you take
Okay.
care.
Bye-bye.
right.
Bye.
I love talking to Tracy.
She's pretty awesome.
She is. And she has such a calming presence.
Very unlike you.
Well, thank you, David. I can't help it. I'm like 7 gears in a 6-gear car.
No, it's more like a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs.
What? All right. So anyway, I'm glad that we addressed the Facebook groups, and, you know, that's how she started her group, because there was so much negativity in other groups and not even good advice. And she just saw that it was just murky waters. and-
Sounds familiar.
yeah, I know. David doesn't like Facebook groups.
No, and it's not just the stepmom groups. So I'm not picking on stepmoms. It's a lot of groups. I'm in groups that are professional groups, and there's a lot of the same stuff that goes on. Bad advice, complaining, people giving their opinions, which are not even factually based a lot of times, and just completely terrible stuff.
Well, when we did the 28 Days to Change Your Thinking challenge in the Nacho Kids Academy, that was one reason, is we have a habit of having negative thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of people do. There's very few people that are positive in their thought processes and expressing that to other people and uplifting people.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is people often like to give advice as if that's what they would do, when that is not what they would do. So they'll say something to the effect of, well, if I were you, I would X, Y, Z.
No, they wouldn't.
And no, dude.
Well, what I like is in the Facebook groups with the step parents, they'll say, well, if that was my kid, I would, hello, Nacho Kid.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that's willing to give that kind of advice.
I saw a post in the group where a stepkid's climbing out the window at night.
Mm-hmm.
The stepmom knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
She told the dad.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't really seem to be too concerned with it.
Oh, then she doesn't need to be concerned with it.
Well, she's concerned for her safety and her other kid's safety because the kid's leaving the window open in the middle of the night.
Okay.
So they may not live in a very safe neighborhood, or even if they do, there's crime.
Mm-hmm.
But people were saying, well, lock her out while she's gone, or call the BM and tell her. Why would you call the BM and tell her?
Yeah, that's crazy. But if dad's okay with it, then tell her, just go out the door.
Well, that's true. And I don't think anybody suggested that.
I mean, why go out the window? If he knows and he don't care, then just go out the door and lock it behind you.
I think somebody said, call the police and say that she's been kidnapped.
Yeah, let's start that lying stuff.
Yeah. Go to the extremes of everything.
Yeah. No, I mean, if he don't care and he knows about it, then why is she sneaking out?
Right. Exactly. But anyway, sorry. Back to Tracy.
All right, Tracy. Don't
Tracy.
be sneaking out the window, Tracy.
Yeah. Tracy. You're too old for that. You might break a hip.
I know Lori did that. We won't get on that side. So
Yes, Lori did. And my daddy nailed my window shut. And I tried to tell him that was a fire hazard. And he said, I do not care. You will burn to death.
Yeah. So I just snuck people in. I never snuck out.
I snuck people in too. Uh-oh. I hope my daddy don't ever listen to this. I don't think I ever admitted that part.
Mm.
You know, when I graduated high school, it was like, I felt like an adult and I felt like I should just bare my soul to everything I had ever done wrong. And I was like, Daddy, you remember that time I told you they had a pep rally at school because I was home early? He's like, yeah. I said, I didn't lie. They did have a pep rally, but I just didn't go to it.
Yeah, I cut school one time. And the one time I did it, I got caught.
That's because you're not smart. See, I worked in the office, so I knew when they mailed out the letters. And I knew when they mailed them, the time frame it took for them to get to my house.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew my daddy's schedule and which days I could get home and get the mail before he did.
No, they didn't. They didn't do the mailing of the letters for me. They picked up the phone and made a phone call.
Really?
Yeah, because it was so uncharacteristic for me to miss school. And then one day I'm not there, like at the same day that my girlfriend's not there. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, anybody could figure that one out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we went to the mall to, you know, of course we want to get away from everybody, right? So we go to the most public place in the world.
Yeah, that wasn't too bright.
Anyway.
Okay, back to Tracy again.
Tracy, stop.
Yeah, Tracy. Don't you understand? We're trying to help you. Tracy has, as we discussed, created the Stepmom Burnout course, and she can be found at theessentialstepmom.com.
And it doesn't have anything to do with essential oils, right?
No, it has nothing to do with essential oils. However, she does use that in her holistic practices.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then she can be found in her step parent group, which is the Spectacular Stepmom.
Cool.
So we have determined that Tracy is essentially spectacular.
Or spectacularly essential.
I think essentially spectacular sounds better.
Of course, because you came up with it.
Of course. So if you're experiencing stepmom burnout, it is something that we have discussed in the Nacho Kids Academy.
What about stepdad burnout?
I'm about to burn you out.
I'm burnt out just dealing with you. Not even a stepkid.
Okay. Well, create your own group.
Well, I guess that's something I could do.
You ain't got time for that.
You're right, I don't.
And then you'll nacho my group and then I'll be mad. You'll be fussing at them.
I'll call Tracy, ask her to start another group.
Tracy's not going to start a stepdad group.
All right, fine. I'll just deal.
Well, you know, we do have some men in our group.
Mm-hmm.
And you are very active in the academy, which is very important because it gives the women a man's perspective other than the husband or their significant other.
Mm-hmm. Heck, half the time I'm giving the men's perspective. Like they don't even know why they feel that way.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, most people don't know why they feel the way they are. They're so wrapped up in it. Like you say, they can't peel away the layers because they're crying so much from the first layer of the onion.
Well, you're just too close to the problem. And that's, you know, that's the same. You know, even with me, a lot of times I have to figure out a way to mentally and emotionally step back so that I can look at the problem more objectively. Because if not, too close to it.
And that, my friends, is what nachoing is. Stepping back mentally and emotionally so you can assess things differently.
Mm-hmm. It's tactical disengagement.
Tactical disengagement. Part of it is.
Yeah.
Not all of it. All right, David, you want to do your little spiel?
What kind of spiel am I doing?
Well, you need to remind people about the contest.
We have a contest going on, peoples.
Tell them about it.
We're trying to get 1,000 reviews and we're well on our way. But we still need about 993
more.
But we want to get 1,000 reviews on the podcast. So
on iTunes.
Yeah, well, you can do other things, but iTunes is the easiest for us to track. Mm-hmm. But if you'll go to nachokids.com/review, then you will find all the information there.
Yes.
And we're giving away prizes.
Yes, we're giving away prizes. The prizes will be 3 prizes, a 3-month, a 6-month, and a 12-month free membership to the Nacho Kids Academy. Should we call it scholarship?
There you go. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I think it should be a scholarship.
I don't know.
So enter to win for your scholarship. Oh, I just thought of an even better contest. We'll have to do that one next time, like next year or something.
A podcast or episode?
No, a like contest where they have to submit a crazy video.
People would love to do that.
Yeah, to win like 3 free months or something like that.
Well, people will probably like send videos of their step kids leaving empty cereal boxes in the pantry.
Well, we did have this one contest a long time ago in the secret nacho group where how long can the egg sit on the counter? Or how long can you nacho the egg sitting on the counter?
Mm-hmm.
I think the chick went 8 days. She won.
Wow.
She didn't win a prize other than my congratulations and one of those little fake GIF, whatever they are, awards. Is it GIF or GIF?
It's GIF.
GIF. Okay. Like gift without the T.
Yeah.
What does it stand for, David?
Stands for graphic something other format.
Good job.
Graphical something format. I don't know. It's long. I'd have to Google it.
I was just curious. I figured you knew. All right. So David's going to lead you into his little spiel about leaving the reviews, I guess.
No, I've already done that.
Okay. Well, then I guess we're done.
All right. Thanks, folks, for listening to this episode of the Nacho Kids Podcast. We much appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
Next week, people. Next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nacho Kids Podcast. Find us online at nachokids.com. Until next time, remember, life is good when you nacho.